caught in the crossfire. It's caught in the...
What's up, guys? Lance the Obscure Movie Guy coming to you once again with another fun-filled, fact-filled video that you probably won't care about, but we're going to do it anyways, trying to change the world one post at a time. And today I'm going to be talking about biopics. Yes, biographical films of unique individuals across time. And we're going to hear the term passion project a lot throughout the course of this video because most biopics are just that. They're either made or done by people that have a passionate interest in the subject matter or the person in and of itself. And for that, the first one we're going to talk about is a 1988 film starring Jeff Bridges called Tucker, A Man and His Dream. Tucker, The Man and His Dream is a 1988 American biographical film directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring Jeff Bridges as inventor Preston Tucker. The film recounts Tucker's story and his attempt to produce and market the automobile called the Tucker 48, which was met with scandal between the big three automobile manufacturers of the time, Ford, GM, and Chrysler, and accusations of stock fraud from the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Joan Allen, Martin Landau, Elias Cotees, Frederick Forrest, and Christian Slater all appear in supporting roles in the film. For his performance, Martin Landau was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor and won the Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actor. The film received positive reviews from critics despite underperforming at the box office. Tucker, The Man and His Dream produced a spike in Tucker prices, as well as renewed appreciation for Tucker himself and his automobiles. So this was a super interesting movie. It's not just a super interesting movie. The whole story of Preston Tucker is super interesting. Film-wise, like I said, it was done by Francis Ford Coppola. He actually owns one of the few Tucker 48s. It's on display at one of his vineyards and one of his wineries out in California. And he was so interested in the guy in the car that he's the one that decided that he was going to make this happen. It was going to be a passion project of his to try and put forth Preston Tucker's story. The other thing with the movie is that, you know, the Security Exchange Commission, the trial, everything kind of unfolded for the Tucker Automotive Company over the course of like 4 years, where the film kind of depicts it as it's something that kind of happened over the course of like a year, 18 months. So it actually does unfold a little bit longer in real life. But Tucker was a forward thinker. You know, I mean, if you think about it, his idea was to have a rear engine, rear drive, aluminum flat six, independent rear suspension with rear disc brakes. Now, if that doesn't sound like a Porsche 911, I don't know what does, but this is on a 5,000-pound land yacht. His initial prototype engine was supposed to be a 589 cubic inch direct drive, horizontally opposed flat six. That is massive. Just to give you an idea of how big that engine is, the Viper, when it came out, had a 488 cubic inch, 8-liter V10. So we're talking 589, that's like 9.9 liters, because there's roughly 60 cubic inches to a liter. So 9.9 liter flat six. That is a huge engine. Huge. It was so big and it didn't work correctly the way that they wanted it to. They actually had to go out and find some sort of variant that would work, and what they settled on was a Franklin 0335 horizontally opposed flat six, which was an aviation motor. It was actually predominantly used in helicopters. But the problem with Tucker was he wanted to keep everything in-house, so he bought the Franklin production company, aviation company, and then cut ties with all of their contracts, which was like 65% of the revenue for Franklin at the time. And then they had to find a transmission that was going to work with this helicopter engine. And they found one with the Cord Transmission Company. So then he bought Cord Transmissions, cut all their contracts, and just kept everything in-house. So he was building the car, building the engines, building the transmissions. But again, a forward thinker. You know, a lot of safety features built into these cars that was ahead of its time. Crumple zones, padded dash, everything on the like instrument cluster was like within reach of like not, it was so within reach you didn't have to take your hands off of the steering wheel was the idea. Your hands are on the steering wheel, the safer you are. Had a integrated roll bar built into the roof, which actually got used in a testing accident where the car did roll 3 or 4 times and when it was done, got set on its wheels, fired back up, and they kept on testing with it. So really interesting stuff. Here's another one for you. So crumple zones is something that became kind of prominent back in the 1990s. Subaru really started using crumple zones with their cars, where the car would get into an accident, crumple in certain areas to try and protect the driver. Integrated roll bar, that's something that you see on the McLaren P1s now in their carbon fiber tub. The race cars that McLaren builds for the IMSA series and the GT3 series don't need a roll bar built into them because it's integrated into the carbon fiber tub, protects the driver. Another interesting thing, and this kind of blew me away, there's a third headlight on the Tucker. So you have your two headlights, there's a third one in the center. And anytime you start turning the wheel, anytime the wheels would turn more than 10 degrees, that headlight turns on and turns in that direction so you can see around the corner. That's something that BMW didn't start doing until like 2010 on the 5 Series. So, super interesting car, super interesting guy, really good movie. And again, passion project by Francis Ford Coppola. And in fact, they actually have one of these stunt cars on display at the Orlando Auto Museum. So if you guys ever come down to Orlando, Florida, not only can you see me, but you can see one of the stunt cars from the movie. Now, it's not an actual Tucker. It's a Tucker body shell built on like an Oldsmobile chassis or something like that. According to the little thing here, this is powered by a Pratt & Whitney helicopter engine that makes 1,500 horsepower. I find that a little hard to believe, but I didn't get to look under the hood. But there's a Preston Tucker stunt car from the movie on display at the Orlando Auto Museum. So come on down, check it out. Sticking with the car theme, it's funny. I could stick with the car theme or I could stick with the Coppola theme, but we'll stick with the cars for now. As the next movie I want to talk about came out in 2022, Lamborghini, the man behind the legend.
Lamborghini, the Man Behind the Legend is a 2022 American biographical drama film written and directed by Robert Moresco and stars Frank Grillo as the Italian entrepreneur Ferruccio Lamborghini. It was released in select theaters in the United States on November 18th, 2022 by Lionsgate. Lamborghini follows the life of the iconic entrepreneur from the manufacturing of tractors at the start of his career to creating military vehicles during World War II, and then on to designing and building the Lamborghini cars that ultimately defined his profound legacy.
So this movie, again, a bit of a passion project. Frank Grillo wanted to be involved with a Lamborghini movie for quite some time where he would portray Ferruccio Lamborghini. This movie's not that bad, but it's also not that good. It showcases a lot of Ferruccio's early life post-war. So coming home from World War II, starting the tractor company, trying to build his own car. All of that's actually really good. The disappointing part for me was when you actually get to later on, when you get to see Frank Grillo as Ferruccio Lamborghini. Frank Grillo does a great job portraying Ferruccio. But I think the thing that kind of gets me a little upset is that this movie was actually too short. I don't say that about a lot of films. This movie runs roughly 90 minutes, which is really hard and really condensed to try and put a full Lifetime story into 90 minutes. And this movie sounds crazy, but it really would have benefited from being probably an hour longer. I would have really loved to see them kind of focus and showcase on not just the Lamborghini GT350 that was the first car that they came out with, but I would have loved to have seen the process if they would have showcased the Lamborghini Miura, which was really the one that put Lamborghini on the map. Often referred to as the most beautiful car ever designed, the Miura is what really kickstarted Lamborghini into becoming this legacy. And I also would have liked to see them showcase the downfall of Lamborghini in the 70s when they took on projects simply to try and make a buck because they were almost on the verge of bankruptcy. One of those projects was the BMW M1. Lamborghini was commissioned to build the M1s on behalf of BMW, since BMW at the time didn't really have any experience building mid-engine cars, and it was something that Lamborghini could do because of the project that they did with the Miura. So those would have kind of fell in line. But yeah, good movie, not great movie. I would have liked to have seen it be a bit longer. Frank Grillo, I think, did a really commendable job portraying the character. And it's actually not that bad. The other thing that I liked about this movie too is that there's like a metaphorical race that goes on between Ferrari and Lamborghini throughout the course of this film. Enzo Ferrari being portrayed by Gabriel Byrne, which was kind of cool. I always like Gabriel Byrne. Didn't have a lot of lines, but he really didn't need to. But there's this metaphorical race that takes place throughout the course of the movie, and towards the end, Lamborghini eventually loses that race. And that really was kind of how things went down. Lamborghini, I think if you're my age, my generation, we all had a Lamborghini Countach poster on our wall at some point and thought that it was the baddest car ever made. And really, when you start growing up and you start looking into Lamborghini, you find out that cars weren't that great. Production was kind of shoddy at best. And they got bankrupt and bought out so many times. You know, they went through their first bankruptcy, and then they were bought out by Chrysler, and Chrysler was responsible for the Diablo, and then Chrysler sold them off, and then Audi picked them up, and then Audi gets bought out by Porsche, and it's all just been a lot of hoopla. The name still carries on. The cars today are much better than the cars of yesteryear, maybe except for the Urus. Not sure how I feel about that SUV, but whatever. The movie, I think, though, if you're into cars and you're into Lamborghini and want to know a little bit more about them, take a look at this. His early years is actually pretty accurate as far as the coming back from war, the whole tractor, building tractors and everything like that. That's actually all pretty accurate. One of the biggest discrepancies I have with this film is probably the wreck that he has during the Mille Miglia 1,000-mile race in Italy. He actually crashed in real life. He actually crashed into a restaurant. In this movie, they just crashed into like a telephone pole. But that's just kind of me nitpicking, if anything. But overall, pretty solid movie. Probably watch it again. And then the next one, to go back to the whole Coppola clan. This one's going to be from Sofia Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola's daughter, and another passion project that she wanted to make happen. And a bit risky, I will say that she did this now. But I want to talk about 2023's Priscilla.
Priscilla is a 2023 American biographical drama film written, directed, and produced by Sofia Coppola. It is based on the 1985 memoir, Elvis and Me, that was written by Priscilla Presley. Priscilla Presley also served as executive producer on the film. It follows the life of Priscilla, played by Kaylee Spaney, and her complicated relationship with Elvis Presley. Priscilla premiered at the 80th Venice International Film Festival on September 4th, 2023, and was released in the United States by A24 Studios in select theaters on October 27th of 2023 before expanding nationwide on November 3rd. The film received generally positive reviews from critics and grossed in over $32 million against a $20 million budget worldwide. For her performance, Spaney received a Best Actress nomination at the Golden Globe Awards.
So Sofia Coppola, as I said, a bit of a passion project for her as well, based off of the 1985 memoir Elvis and Me by Priscilla Presley, who was supposedly an executive producer on the film. So there was a bit of controversy. I read in a couple spots that she didn't like the movie, but I also thought it was odd that she kind of analyzed some of the scenes and served as an executive producer. So I don't know how much truth there is to that. Maybe she just didn't like the way it came out. But overall, this was actually... So this is an interesting movie, especially if you watch it like now, because Elvis just came out. Laz Berman's Elvis just came out a couple years ago. So Sophia really took a chance on doing Priscilla, because obviously anything Elvis related is going to forever be compared to Laz Berman's Elvis and Austin Butler's portrayal of the character. So it was kind of ballsy for her to come out and try and do this. What I do like is that I like the fact that they both kind of came out around the same time, because you can watch Elvis and you can watch Priscilla and they're not combating each other. It's really cool, because Elvis is going to be obviously focused on him, and a lot of that story is going to be from Elvis's point of view. And then you have Priscilla, which is obviously going to be her story, and a lot of those things from her point of view. So you've got her version of the truth, Elvis's version of the truth, and somewhere in the middle there's the actual truth. I think both movies did really well portraying the story of Priscilla and Elvis. Obviously Elvis is going to be more focused on him. Priscilla's version, biopic, obviously more focused on her. Now there is some inaccuracies, just like there is with any other biopic. There is some rumors as to how true or false her affair was, her learning of karate or kung fu or whatever it was she was into at the time. But overall, I think the performances, Kaylee Spaney did a really good job as Priscilla. Jacob Elordi, who is best known for The Kissing Booth, Elordi did a really, I don't want to say, he did a really good job. He did a commendable job portraying Elvis, especially knowing that whatever performance he does is going to be put up against Austin Butler's, which was very, very well done. I think the difference here is that Elordi is, the story's a little bit more condensed for Priscilla, as far as how much of Elvis you get to see. And what I mean by that is, if you look at Laz Berman's Elvis, you get pretty much like 3 iterations of Elvis. You get him at the beginning of his career, you get him at his comeback, and then you get him at the end of his career. With Priscilla and Elordi's performance, you're only going to pretty much get like one Elvis. You're not going to get the evolution of Elvis. You're just going to get a Elvis. But I tell you what, man, I think it was risky for him to try and take that on. One, considering you're going to be portraying Elvis, so that in and of itself is some shoes to fill, and then you're going to be directly put up against Austin Butler's performance. It's almost like anybody else trying to play Joker. You're always going to be compared to Heath Ledger at this point. He did such an amazing job. Any Joker thereafter is going to be like, well, it's not Heath Ledger, and it's going to be kind of the same thing. Elordi does Elvis, and it's definitely going to get put up against Austin Butler's. But I think the mannerisms, and the tone and inflection when he speaks, it's actually all pretty accurate. The biggest problem I had with Elordi being Elvis was really his height. The dude's like 6'5" and a beanpole, which Elvis was kind of a beanpole in the beginning of his career, but Elvis was only like 6 foot. So if you can get past that, it's not a bad flick. It's pretty interesting to see things from Priscilla's point of view. Especially since she's kind of like the last thing we got going, because we lost Lisa Marie, we've lost Elvis, and Priscilla is, the last real like close thing we have to Elvis's legacy. So not bad. So if you're into biopics, I really highly recommend these 3. This was kind of fun for me because there's not a lot of obscure biopics per se. You get a lot of like Elvis, the main guy. You don't often get to see one for the spouse. So this was kind of fun for me to find 3 obscure biopics, and they all have, I don't want to say they all have their counterparts, but if you take a look at like Tucker, A Man in His Dream, at the time, more popular biopic was Howard Hughes that starred Tommy Lee Jones, and then obviously there was another Howard Hughes, The Aviator, with Leonardo DiCaprio years later. So Howard Hughes was definitely more popular than Preston Tucker. And then you have Lamborghini, which it came out, and unfortunately it's about an hour too short. And this year you've got Enzo, or Ferrari, coming out. So they're going to have the Ferrari biopic going up against, the recently released Lamborghini pick. And then you have Priscilla, its counterpart Elvis. So in all three of those cases, Elvis, Ferrari, and Howard Hughes, they're all the mainstream stuff, as to where you do get a little bit of obscurity with Preston, Lamborghini, and Priscilla. So that was kind of fun for me. Nonetheless, sorry my inner car nerd came out a little bit earlier. But that's going to be it for me for today. Like, subscribe, and comment to the video. Please share it. Subscribe if you can, please. I want to try and get to 500 this year. I'm getting close to 400, so let's try and make it happen. And let me know in the comments below what you think of this video. Is there other movies that I should be checking out? And I will see you guys in the next one.